wanted to capitalize on the many things and what was uniquely Tampa. The visitor has become very sophisticated. People didn't want the same old thing anymore. They wanted to go into a destination, a community, and feel like a local. Live like a local, dine like a local, experience a destination like a local, and it impacts our community. We want to be a part of the solution, not a part of ignoring the problem. I think when you become credible and you become very good at what you do, then people look at you to flex a little bit.
Okay, another episode of Scaling Secrets. I'm Dan Maddox, and we're joined today by Santiago Carrata and with Visit Tampa.
Visit Tampa Bay.
Today we're Visit Tampa Bay.
Bay, yeah.
The whole region.
Our side of the bay. Our region on the other side of the bay.
I guess we'll start with that. That's strategic, right?
It's strategic, right? We don't represent just Tampa.
Yeah.
We represent all of Hillsborough County.
Got it.
So Visit Tampa would have excluded some people. Visit Hillsborough County would have been a tough sell around the country, around the world. It's a little long. And then, obviously we have two other municipalities, Plant City, Temple Terrace. Yeah. So Visit Tampa Bay, we've been Tampa Bay for a long time. Before we were Visit Tampa Bay, we were Tampa Bay and Company. So the Tampa Bay name has been with the organization for a long time. And it was a great way of capturing our side of the bay. And obviously we have a great relationship with Visit St. Pete Clearwater. We do lots of things with them. In fact, we just incentivized with our airport a new direct flight to Mexico. Yeah. That was a joint venture. Okay. Even though we just represent the other side of the bay, we do have a great working relationship with this side of the bay.
Got you. So let's talk. You worked in some mayor's office.
I did.
Kind of talk to me just how you fell into this.
Yeah, it's my background is a bit interesting. Not originally out of Miami, but I spent about 26 years in Miami, worked with the school system there. Believe it or not, was a middle school principal, high school principal. Then I went to work with the mayor in Miami. So I worked with another mayor. There I ran the city of Miami's Parks and Rec department for a little bit. And then we had a new mayor here in Tampa, Pam Iorio, and she recruited me out of Miami to come and be her neighborhood services administrator. So I spent Mayor Iorio's 8 years with her. And then we had a new mayor, Bob Buckhorn, who came in. And I was Mayor Buckhorn's chief of staff for a few years. And then I was lucky enough that this position came open, and I transitioned over to Visit Tampa Bay almost 11 years ago. So I'm one of the longest standing CEOs in the top 25 markets that hasn't seen a change in leadership.
Right. And you've also been here through an incredible growth period. You've been involved in public affairs or government. What has that been like? I got here in 2016, and the whole region's exploded since 2016, but I can't imagine
It's been so fascinating and really impressive. I'll be celebrating my 21st year in Tampa.
Right.
And to see and in many ways it's been smart growth, right? To see, the focus on downtown development to make it residential, to bring life to pretty much, a business like downtown, a 9 to 5. I remember 21 years ago when I was working for the mayor in downtown Tampa, that, 5 o'clock, 5:30, it was a ghost town. And to see then the development of the Riverwalk, the development of residential, the development of Water Street, Midtown, it's very, very impressive. And no doubt, we've caught the attention of the world, right? Time Magazine last year named Tampa one of the greatest places on earth. Fortune mentions us all the time. Just did an interview with Newsweek yesterday. So again, the attention we've received because of this evolution of a city. Yeah. And in the right way, we're drawing people to live here. Tourism has broken every record except the pandemic year for the last God knows how many years. So again, a lot of positive attention to the Hillsborough County side of the Bay. And likewise, we've seen that development in Pinellas County as well. So the Bay Area is really very dynamic, and it's a powerful Bay Area when we're united and we can move forward together.
From my memory, in the time that I've been, it really seems like the Buckhorn administration, which you were a part of. Yeah. That you talked about smart growth. That was, I know, a big thing for him, right? That was...
Yeah, we've had great mayors, right? I think we've had the right mayor at the right time for the development of the city. Mayor Iorio really focused on neighborhood development and getting out in the neighborhoods and making sure that neighborhoods were empowered and we saw the right kind of investment in our neighborhoods. That followed Mayor Greco, who was, a business development, downtown development person. And then Mayor Buckhorn came in with another emphasis on building the downtown.
On the Riverwalk, right? That was a big part of it.
Well, Riverwalk, Julian B. Lane Riverfront Park was a big project for him. Under the Ioria administration, we had started to develop our downtown parks. We saw huge investment in Curtis Hickson Park, Waterworks Park. We saw investments in some of the parks up near Water Street. So, right mayors at the right time. And then, back to Mayor Buckhorn, a real focus on downtown residential development and continuing that legacy of the Riverwalk, which had been started by many mayors before.
Right.
It's just that, the right time and the right place to continue to develop that Riverwalk. I think the stars aligned and we saw, that incredible development. And now we're seeing Mayor Castor, following that and looking at expansion of the Riverwalk. She's really working on the west bank of the river, which was something that Mayor Buckhorn often spoke about. So, we're seeing mayors that continue the work of a prior mayor, maybe not in such a different way, but it's very supplementary.
Sure.
And so you see, again, the smart growth that's happened over many decades now.
You say, you mentioned you work incredibly well with your partners here on the other side of the bay. You have the water, but not the beach. How do you?
Still
get that message out?
A lot of travelers and people who are not familiar with the region don't know the difference, right? They see the Bay Area as one thing, right? They see a great metro area with beautiful beaches across a bridge, and so. Our partnership is interesting because obviously award-winning beaches on this side of the bay, and then we have some great infrastructure on our side of the bay, a major theme park, we've got museum developments, attractions. We like to market our side of the bay on how genuinely and uniquely Tampa it is.
Got it.
Right? Whether it's the food, whether it's the attractions, whether it's the people, the history.
Yeah.
We love to talk about, what makes Tampa special. And, we had a great opportunity 10 years ago, or a little over 10 years ago when I joined the organization to rebrand and to really decide who we were, how we wanted to represent Hillsborough County, and how we wanted to market it. And I think, we had a soul searching, right? We hired a firm that did a lot of study groups and was out there trying to get the impressions of what people thought about when they heard Tampa. And, the one thing we heard over and over again was that there was no one iconic thing, right? When you think of Vegas, there's an iconic thing there, right? When you think of New York City or you think of Orlando, Los Angeles, Tampa didn't have one thing. It had many things.
Right.
So we wanted to capitalize on the many things and what was uniquely Tampa. And obviously our history, our people, our culture, our food was critical. We didn't want to market Tampa with palm trees and the water because, who in Florida can't claim, palm trees,
palm
right?
trees and water,
and water. We have a lot of coastal destinations like this one that can really, really market themselves around water, and we chose not to do that.
How do you do that? Yeah, that was my question. When you obviously don't want to dilute things too much, right?
Right.
You've got the cigar history. You've got Gasparilla, which is
exactly.
How do you decide? Okay, we're going to attack all of these without diluting the brand.
We don't dilute the brand because of the focus on culture and history and authenticity, and all the things you mentioned make us authentic, right? No one really has, the cigar industry to claim like we can, right? I was watching
more so than Little Havana.
Little Havana. Little Havana is a consumer-to-consumer place, not where it's created, where it's made, and now we even have consumer-to-consumer opportunities here. But it was that legacy of cigar rolling when it left Cuba, how it landed in Ybor City, that we have one of the only functioning cigar factories really in the country. So we really focus on. We have to know the destination very well. Right? Because we have to know what resonates with potential visitors or investors or people wanting to move here. We do economic development marketing as well, right? So we really have to be very, very familiar with what strikes a chord. And so all of those things are uniquely us. And by the way, we say, and within 30 minutes, you have some of the best beaches in the world. And right within an hour, you're at the mecca of theme parks. And, we're centrally located, very strategically located. And yes, we have beautiful waterfronts waterfronts, not beaches. We have beautiful waterfronts. We have a beautiful waterfront convention center, which helps us to bring a lot of conventions, meetings, and events here. Right. And so, yes, we have to capitalize on what makes us uniquely special, because we found that, visitors, if we stay on tourism, the visitor has become very sophisticated. And we saw that through the rise of Airbnb, VRBO. People didn't want the same old thing anymore. Right. They wanted to go into a destination, a community, and feel like a local. Live like a local, dine like a local, experience that destination like a local, and that fit perfectly with our brand, right? We weren't cookie cutter. We weren't like everybody else, right. And I think that's been a big part of our success in breaking tourism numbers and seeing the kind of revenues that we're seeing in the hotel industry and the hospitality industry.
So you're more focused on tourism, correct? Not necessarily people moving down here.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
We're seeing a lot of people move down here.
I used to say we love staying in our lane,
right.
But we've been asked to change lanes a lot, right? I think when you become credible and you become very good at what you do, then people look at you to flex a little bit, right? So, and I can give you lots of examples. We primarily are about tourism. But, some years ago, our county said, you guys do a great job of telling the story to potential visitors, tourists, conventions, meetings, events, etc. Why not pivot a little and share that quality of life story with people who are looking to relocate, people who are looking to find jobs here, corporations that are looking to relocate or have satellite offices. Mm-hmm. So we partnered with our Economic Development Corporation, and we now do economic development marketing around campaigns that are named Make It Tampa Bay. On the visitor front, it's Visit Tampa Bay. Okay. But when we morph into more of economic development, we're talking about Make It Tampa Bay. Make it Tampa Bay for your new home. Make it Tampa Bay for a new job. Make it Tampa Bay for a new career. So we pivot there. We've also done marketing against human trafficking. Right. A lot of my colleagues may decide they don't want to talk about that. Right. No, we want to talk about that. If it's an issue and it impacts our community, we want to be a part of the solution, not a part of ignoring the problem. So we've done, marketing around, anti-human trafficking. We've done, the food scene. I say it very proudly because I think we were one of the main reasons why the Michelin Guide found Florida. Right. We released a cookbook before the pandemic that really focused on all these cool new restaurants and all these incredible chefs that were coming to town to supplement, some of our great original, uniquely Tampa restaurants. You can think of La Columbia or Burns or Mise en Place. And then we had, this proliferation of cool chefs and new restaurants. So we decided, we wanted to market to the foodie community because people travel for food too.
Oh, yeah.
And so we came up with this cookbook, and I believe that kind of caught the attention of some folks. And we started having conversations with the folks with the Michelin Guide before the pandemic. And here we are, third year of Tampa, Orlando, Miami Michelin-rated restaurants in the Florida Michelin Guide, which is another feather in the cap to this region. So
I was telling you before we started rolling here, I lived here, moved to Charlotte for just a year. Nothing against Charlotte, but it's not here, and I wanted to move back. Yeah. I had a friend from New York a couple weekends ago came down, and he hadn't been here for maybe a decade, and was like, "Wow, I see why you did that." I mean, when we spent time in St. Pete and in Tampa, and the beaches, but this whole area collectively. And a lot of people from New York have moved here, right? I mean, I feel like a lot of people are flooding here.
Yeah, but the secret's out, right?
I mean, what do you think? What was the? And it seems like it. I mean, obviously, I know, it's really been work over the last 20 years, but it seems just really in the last 5 years, and it's maybe you think the pandemic accelerated it, or
I think the pandemic may have. I think the way Florida handled the pandemic and different communities within Florida handled the pandemic, I think had something to do with it. I don't remember if it was the Wall Street Journal or it was Fortune magazine that said that the new attention on Tampa was due to two things, right? One was marketing. Okay. And so they gave us a plug. One is marketing, and the second was private investment. And I think both of those go hand in glove with what we've seen here. You could be the best place on earth, and if no one knows, no one knows, right? And that's the beauty of marketing and advertising and PR. You get to tell the story, a destination of a community, of a place, and then that attracts that private investment, right? Because people now, you're now on their radar. They're seeing, wow, we have proliferation of hotels, we have a proliferation of living opportunities there. There's no income tax. It's easy to do business. It's a business-focused environment. And so all of those things factor into the growth we're seeing. And again, you have to be smart about it. We've seen other communities just blow up, and then what happens is the quality of life is impacted, and then people just want to leave, right? I hear that all the time. How busy is it there? How congested is it there? Are my children going to go to a school where class size is manageable? Am I going to go to a restaurant and not have to wait 3 hours to be served? I mean, all of those things impact your quality of life, and it's important to grow, like we started the podcast, in a very smart, intelligent way, because then what happens is you price yourself out. People decide this is not for me. I want quiet. I want stable. I want a little bit less stress. And then you start losing, that magic. So we have to, I think we're at a cusp here of, being very, very smart about how we continue the growth and manage it, because it can be detrimental.
In terms of you having the perspective of working in government as long as you did, with the housing situation, I know that's the big concern that feels like both St. Pete and Tampa are talking about.
It's interesting because in my job, I get to visit lots of communities around the country and around the world, right? I had a list not too long ago of over, 30 different countries and just about every city in the U.S. that's a top market. And I think everybody grapples with that. And when you look at price-wise still, right, what it may cost to live in San Francisco versus Tampa, or what it may still even cost to live in New York City versus Tampa, and some of these other large metro areas. You can throw Chicago in there, you can throw anybody you want. There's still a huge price differential. I mean, we're here and we're in it, so we think, wow, the pricing here is off the charts. It's ridiculous. But when you still compare to other places, for what you get in Tampa, what you get in Florida, it's a much better deal than what you may get someplace else, right?
And it seems like Mayor Castor and Mayor Welch, both mayors in St. Pete, Tampa, are very conscious of
they
that.
They are, and I think both are very focused on affordable housing,
using a lot of resources
and using a lot of, whether they're federal, state, local, they're really focused on the issue, which is what we do. I mean, it's what we do. I've been so surprised how well this region comes out of major crisis. Right, whether it's a recession or a depression or COVID or some natural disaster, when we deal with it, we're working through it, right? And we're working on how we come out of it, as opposed to wringing our hands, putting our head down and being afraid, being tentative. I've not seen that in my 20 plus years here. It's always, we're going to work through this. And while everybody is hesitant and tentative, we're not going to be. We're going to be decisive, because we want to come out of this better than we went into it. And I think we've seen that every single time.
We've had a couple hurricanes the last
scares.
5 years, real big scares. Ian, Irma, they were all Cat 4, Cat 5.
Yes, sir.
That at one point they were like
bullseye.
And then we got lucky, and some other people didn't. There's been a lot of talk that we may not be exactly ready to handle a situation like that. Not that any community is, but
I was a veteran Hurricane Andrew. Down in South Florida. In fact, I managed a shelter down in Homestead, Florida during that hurricane. And I don't know if you are ever 1,000% prepared for the magnitude and the power of a Cat 5 storm. Right.
That's what I mean. No community can.
I mean, and I have to tell you, being part of hurricane preparedness for the city of Tampa, and having arrived here, and we had one of those, I forget the name of the storm. We had a bullseye storm about 20 years ago. It was coming right to us, and then took a sharp right below us, and I forget what storm that was. But the amount of preparation that I saw the city and the county engaged in to make sure that as soon as that storm passed, we could get out there and do what we had to do. We were geographically bunkered down. prepared with heavy equipment to get out there and to try to restore normality as quickly as possible. I can tell you that we are prepared. Now, from a building code perspective, I couldn't answer that, right? Because we have stuff that's been around for a while. So how well those structures would handle something of that magnitude, I don't know. But I can tell you that as far as response and preparedness by our city and county, very, very well prepared. We should rest easy that our government will respond quickly, appropriately, and will do what it needs to do. But again, the destruction that you may face. Hurricane Andrew was the one that I dealt with down in South Florida. It's come to me, but I can tell you that being ground zero of something like that, it is devastating. And it takes communities decades. It's a little bit faster now because communities have gotten a lot better at dealing with these things. But I can tell you when Hurricane Andrew hit South Florida, and it hit that Homestead, Florida City, real South Florida area of Miami, it was devastating. And it took a while to get back on your feet.
For sure.
It really did.
So as a tourism marketing agency, I mean, I know organization, I wouldn't say agency, you're really a large organization. You know, it's like even if we get a hurricane and it's, 100 miles south, it still impacts the PR aspect.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the
people
perception.
Think everything's closed.
Yes, and the perception.
How do you deal with that?
A lot of educating.
Yeah.
Then that's when you really earn your stripes, right? Because you have to be sensitive to what's happened to a nearby local community where you've not been impacted. And as we've said, we've had near misses quite a lot. So we have to be sensitive about what's happened to our neighbors, but we also have to be very deliberate in saying it didn't happen here. All of our assets are intact. We are still having X convention. We're still having X concert. Whatever the case might be, life is still going on with us, and we're very sympathetic with what has happened to our neighbor. And so we've had to do that quite a bit over my last.
And I don't know if you were in this, or if you were in city government during the BP oil spill, same kind of thing.
Yes,
same kind of oil ever.
Correct. No, I was, okay. And a same kind of, you have to respond in the same way, because I have to tell you, somebody sitting in England, in London, may not be so geographically familiar
state of Florida,
with Florida, right? I mean, and this always leads to a funny story I love telling. So early on in my tenure with this organization, we were fortunate enough to be able to draw the International Indian Film Awards, the Bollywood Awards, to Tampa, Florida, first time in the U.S. And I remember going to India to talk about us being the host of this incredible worldwide event. There are more Indian films shot than any other country in the world. I mean, the proliferation of film is incredible. And some of their actors are probably more known worldwide than even ours, right? Because they film in so many different locations all over the globe. And we were in India marketing, us being the host of next year's International Indian Film Awards. And I remember being at a trade show, and we have our booth, and I remember people coming to me and saying, where in Miami is Tampa? And so the geography, was confusing. And, then you have to find a map and say, wait a minute, no, we're a little bit further away from Miami. We're a West Coast city in Florida. We're on the Gulf Coast, not on the Atlantic Ocean. And, we're about 4.5 hour difference between the two of us. And we have different personalities, different characteristics, different assets. So again, geography, and whenever there's an impact to Florida, if it's not in your backyard, you have to be on your toes to make sure you can, again, be sensitive, but also be educational and say, it's not impacting us, by the way.
So in terms of scaling, I mean, in terms of your normal business, it's what you do is a little bit different, right? I'm sure you have different sources of revenue that are coming in. In terms of these agencies that fund you, like, is primarily more money being pumped into organizations like this, or what are you seeing?
So primarily our funding is in two ways. We're funded by the tax that is paid by visitors when they stay in a rental property, right? So if you were to stay in any hotel in Pinellas or in Hillsborough County, you're paying what they call, and it's got a bunch of names, it's all the same, right? They call it the bed tax, they call it the tourism development tax, they call it the occupancy tax. So it's got a lot of names, but but it's a surcharge that you're paying to stay in a hotel. None of us ever pay this tax unless we're doing a staycation, or we're staying at a hotel because of something happening in our home, right? So it's all visitor focused, visitor based. It's a tax that visitors pay when they come to a destination, more than likely. So a percentage of that comes to us to do what we do. Right. And then because we are a 501c6 organization, we're also able to generate private revenue. So we have a combination. That private revenue comes in many different ways. Partnership, we have paying partners that are part of our organization. We have events, we have marketing co-ops when we go out on the road. We have people buying into our marketing as well, some of our partners. So there are a number of ways. We have I forgot to mention, a great retail site, our Unlock Visitor Center, where we sell product that's curated about Tampa, focused completely about Tampa. And so it's the tourism tax and the private revenues that we generate. And, they're both a product of how well the industry is doing, right? So if you're having lots of visitation and you're hitting great occupancy numbers, and that can drive rate, the tourism tax is larger. It grows, right? If your partners are doing well and there's a proliferation of partners because they see the value of what you do, then your private revenue also increases. So we've seen, just to put it in a layman's perspective, when I started this job almost 11 years ago, over 10 years ago, it'll be 11 here shortly, hotel revenues in Hillsborough County for a calendar year were approximately $423 million. Okay. In order to be a high-impact tourism destination in the state, as dictated by state statute, you have to hit $600 million in a calendar year. Yeah. So 11 years ago, we were not a high-impact tourism destination. We're at 423. I set a goal for the organization and for the industry that we would hit that $600 million in 3 years. Well,
and it's a direct result of marketing. That's the power.
Direct result. Not looking at growth of inventory, not looking at what we can add. It was, can we sell what we have? Right. Let's sell what we have. And so, you drive occupancy, that drives rate, that drives investment. Cool. And so fast forward, last year, the calendar year, we hit $1.1 billion in hotel revenue. So you go rewind 10 years ago, 423. Fast forward, $1.1 billion.
23.
23.
Gotcha. Okay. 23. That was the number for 23.
Yeah,
wow.
The number for 23. Yeah. And so that dramatic increase was in large part to selling what you have. Because really the hotel inventory hasn't grown in such a way to drive that growth. Right. We've added maybe in 10 years 2,000 hotel rooms, not properties. 2,000. Sometimes you have one hotel in one large city that's almost 2,000 rooms. Right. We've seen collectively in Hillsborough County maybe 2,000 rooms added. So it's the power of marketing, it's the power of selling, it's the power of, again, the attention we've received.
Do more higher end hotels kind of help with that? I know that Tampa's
for a long time we didn't have that, right? And the Addition is a great example, right? 5-star, limited number of those throughout the world. Right. I think maybe 15 or 16 of them, and it's the highest flag that Marriott really carries. Yeah. The Addition. And so to have one of those, I think really elevates the brand. We got our first JW Marriott just a few years ago, right? So JW, an Addition. We have a Pendry under construction now. So, for the first time a few years ago, we started seeing a Loft and we started seeing Element. These were products that we didn't have in the market. And now, because of that, we can also appeal to a different customer. Right? The luxury brand customer that wants to come to a destination and stay at an Addition, stay at a JW Marriott, eat at a Michelin star rated restaurant, fly a Virgin Atlantic that we landed, just a few months ago from London to Tampa. So again, it's making sure that we have the right brands in the right numbers, because again, we've also seen too many of the same brand cannibalize. If you have 5 or 6 5-star hotels, what does that do to your market? And so again, it's doing it in a very smart way.
So we've talked about where we are and how we got where we are now, like the tremendous growth. Like, where are we going 10 years from now?
Well,
what are you focusing in on?
For us, number one, it's to stay relevant to be very creative.
Okay.
You know, we have a lot of out-of-the-box thinkers back at the office. Yeah, I get to talk about their great work. It's not Santiago coming up with these amazing campaigns, you know, partnering with Uber or Lyft, partnering with, you know, you name the organization. We have now 2 international soccer teams that we are the destination sponsor. We have one in England. We have one in Germany. It's being very, very creative with marketing because we want to continue to drive investment. You know, we have not hit saturation as far as, in my opinion, the hotel industry. In fact, I think we really need more hotel development in Hillsborough County. When you're talking about, you know, 25,000 and change hotel rooms for a county like ours and a major destination like Tampa, it's not enough. But again, it's growing in a smart way, adding the right brands, adding the right price levels as far as hotels, because, you know, February was our second best month of all time. This February that we just put into the books.
Taylor Swift visited.
Well, you know what? I don't know if Taylor was in February,
I don't know if that was.
But I got to tell you, you know, I was at a conference and I wasn't liked very much because we're sitting in the room and one of the folks that was presenting said, you know, if you really want to drive visitation to your destination, you should think about hosting Taylor Swift, Beyonce, or the Savannah Bananas. Okay. And I had to raise my hand and say, we just did all 3 within the last few months. Wow, okay. And everybody in the room was like, who is that jerk? You know, is so lucky that he's had all 3 of those major drivers in their destination. And, you know, we just had Madonna, we just had Billy Joel and Sting, you know, Drake, you know, I mean, so.
Donna Summer's coming to go Clearwater, so I guess.
Donna Summers? I hope not.
Donna
I think she passed away some time ago. I want to go see that and love Donna Summers. But, you know, it's really interesting because we're starting to see even performing artists, you know, playing Tampa and in a very limited way. I mean, Taylor Swift only played Tampa in Florida. And she did 3 incredible nights, sold out all 3 nights. Hotel occupancy, over 94% occupancy, all of Hillsborough County, all 3 nights. So we had people driving in regionally to catch Taylor Swift, and they stayed. I mean, we had people that stayed for all 3 nights. And so Beyonce, same situation. So, you know, it's not just conventions and meetings and leisure travelers domestically, internationally. It's these big events, these big shows. You know, we just wrapped up the Women's Final Four in Cleveland. We have it next year. You know, so it's this, you know, proliferation of incredible events, sporting, entertainment. And again, we can't forget conventions, meetings, and events. Last year, we had our biggest convention summer of all time. And we're focused on beating that one this summer. So again, I think it's being able to coordinate all that stuff to make sure that you're capitalizing on, you know, the momentum that you have.
Gotcha. Santiago, thank you for coming on today.
Oh my gosh.
How can people find you?
Well, visit TampaBay.com. You know, all of our social media platforms. We have incredible podcasts as well. You know, we share a home with Film Tampa Bay, the Sports Commission, Friends of the Riverwalk, Gasparilla Bowl, a number of organizations that reside with us where there's a lot of symbiosis in what we do. So we all have great podcasts, and you can find, you know, an incredible amount of information on visitTampaBay.com.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.